How did we get here? Since we are all here in Arizona, I assume that we are all familiar with the landscape in which we live in. We have high, rocky mountains, plenty of rocks, and dirt. Lots and lots of it, actually, as I'm pretty sure we're all very aware of. But have you ever thought about where all these rocks and all this dirt came from? Or maybe those fossils that have now been buried deep underground for millions of years? What land did they used to travel over? For my research proposal, I'd like to investigate the history of North America and where it used to be on the map before we had the Earth that we see now. Who were our neighbors before we had this great ocean separating some of our biggest land masses? First, I will take you through my literature review. Giving you an insight on some of the resources that I have used to back my research proposal. The three main components I will review today are continental drift, Pangea, and tectonic plates, which are the three main components of what my research consists of. And now, I will start with continental drift. Originally, the theory of continental drift was first started in 1912 by Alfred Wagner, saying that we once had a big supercontinent which is now known as Pangea. This was a supercontinent, meaning that all the land masses that we now know were all connected, not a separated world like the one we have now. But how did we go from one supercontinent of Pangea to multiple large continents like the Earth we have today? Well, this is where Wagner's theory of continental drift comes in. As pictured, he said we started as one big continent of Pangea around 225 million years ago and then drifted to where we are now. Wagner's theory of this major drift was not even accepted for many years. Due to the progressive nature of his thoughts, this was not the same as everyone else's beliefs at the time. According to Pellegrini, other scientists were even quoted to say that Wagner was an early advocate of an immature theory and born at the wrong time. So, what is Pangea? Pangea is the supercontinent that existed over 200 million years ago. And unlike the continents that we have now, which are mostly separated by large masses of water, this supercontinent was all connected, nothing breaking them apart. Wagner, who is pictured, was the originator of the theory. He was the one to point out that the continents that we know now have many similarities within their shape, almost like a puzzle, where all the pieces fit perfectly, even some of their bends and curves. But if we were always apart like we are now, then how could this have been possible? I believe that this fact was the hardest part for people to accept. The fact that something so big as our continents could have been just moved as if they weren't here the whole time. And if they did move, are they still moving? The fear of the unknown is always a hard thing to accept, and discoveries like this are often hard to believe, which is why this theory took 50 years to finally be accepted. Sadly, the acceptance of Wagner's theories were not widely accepted until after his death, 50 years after this theory had even been proposed. But how do the continents move? That is where our tectonic plates come in. Essentially, Earth is made up of many different plates that are on Earth's crust. As in the picture, you can see we have the North American plate, South American plate, African plate, and many more. These plates are always moving. They're grinding against each other or moving away from each other. This played a part in continental drift because with the constant moving of plates, they eventually broke the bond between the supercontinents and drifted apart. Now that we've reviewed the literature, why is this question important? Well, while knowing who our past neighbors were does not necessarily give us any physical form of help now, seeing as we can't just smush all of the continents together again, but knowing this will give us an understanding of the Earth and how we got to where we are now, and possibly where we will be in the future. By conducting this research, there will also put more evidence to research about Pangea and continental drift, connecting one location to another, connecting them in ways that this current form of Earth would not even be possible. Although Pangea is greatly accepted now, there was times where it wasn't, and research similar to this caused a greater acceptance throughout science and culture. So, by conducting more research, it is only solidifying the research that is already accepted by Wagner. Now, we can get into the methodology. To start, my hypothesis for this research will of course be told in two parts, my hypothesis and my null hypothesis. First, my hypothesis is that if we take soil, rock sediments, and fossils from plants, animals, and other organisms from multiple bordering locations in North America, such as states along the east and southeast border, and then take soil, rock sediments, and fossils from plants, animals, and other organisms from bordering locations in north and north-south of Africa, South America, and Eurasia, then we will be able to find locations in which these continents were once connected at, without the break of the oceans between them, of course. My null hypothesis will be that if we take the samples from both sets of locations, then we will not find where these continents used to connect. Next, I will go through the steps in the process of this research to find out if our hypothesis is correct or incorrect. In order to accurately look at the areas of interest for this study, we must first map out a plan of where we should draw materials from to conduct research. For this study, I suggest taking locations all along the eastern bordering states of North America, going along the coastline and having a 240-kilometer radius around each set location, starting with the furthest northeast location of North America, traveling down to the farthest southeast portion of North America. In the images provided, we will start with the areas that are included within the red border that has been drawn in, and if necessary, spread from the selected points if found null results. And since we already know that the northern and southern borders of North America are surrounded by Canada and South America, these bordering locations do not need to be tested, since during continental drift they did not separate. After taking samples from each set location, we can repeat this process with the same 240-kilometer radius markers in Africa, South America, and Eurasia. Instead of looking at the eastern sides of these continents like we did in North America, we will look at the western bordering locations. And again, if found null results, we will expand the tested areas. After gathering rocks and soil and fossil fragments or full fossils from plants, animals, and other organisms, we will then go into testing of all of this for geographic similarities. For fossils, we can test to find similar fossil findings, since without current technology, it is not likely to find the same organisms in one continent that we would the other. Doing this, we can have a good idea of if these continents were really combined at one point in time, and what points they were connected. Doing this testing, we'll be able to conclude the connecting points and even the geographic similarities between these continents from 200 million years ago. My hypothesized outcomes are that once research is conducted on each set of locations using soil, rock sediments, and fossils from both plants, animals, and other organisms from each set of data or each set of locations, then we'll be able to find the connecting points within them and have an accurate placement of where our current locations would be in relation to Pangea in our current and most accepted version of the world map. I can conclude this outcome with the help from other research that is out there, just like the research provided in Continental Drift, Theory and Definition by Oskin, where similar testing was made. I am confident that we will be able to find concrete evidence between all of our continents, showing us a look into our past and how these major landmasses that seem huge to us as they are now were once combined to make an even bigger supercontinent. In conclusion, I believe that this research is important in our history. While continental drift and Pangea is accepted as true now, there is always more information to find, and always more research to conduct, even if it seems as if there is not. The world is full of questions, and this is just a step into answering just a few of those.